Ask anybody how they're doing with money and you get the same two words, I'm fine. It's the most common answer in American money, and it means five completely different things depending on where the person saying it is standing. Hey, I'm Stan, engineer, veteran, and I learned money from both sides, came up counting every dollar on the south side of Chicago, then went and actually studied how it works, street and school. I know that because I've said it from two different places. Years ago, I had a little art studio back in Chicago that went under and took my savings with it, and I landed a couple of floors below where I'd been hard. For a long stretch after that, I was the guy telling people I was fine while quietly doing math on whether the card would clear. Same two words I'd used when I actually was fine. Nobody could hear the difference, including me. So today, I want to hand you the map I didn't have, 5 levels, and the honest questions that tell you which one you're on. Let me show you. It starts with a check engine light on a Thursday.
The check engine light came on in Curtis's dashboard on a Thursday 12 minutes from home, and he reached over and turned the radio up. He wasn't ignoring the car, he was ignoring the number under it, because a $400 repair was going on a credit card, and some part of him had already done that math at the first flicker. That night his brother called, and somewhere in the catching up he asked the question, "How are you doing, money-wise?" And Curtis gave the most common answer in American money. 2 words, "I'm fine." He wasn't lying. He also wasn't fine. Both of those things were true at once, and the rest of this story is about how about 73% of adults tell the Federal Reserve they're doing at least okay financially. That's the survey of household economics and decision-making, a real count, not a guess. Now flip it over. More than 1 in 4 adults will tell a government surveyor flat out that they are not okay, and the 73% who say they're fine? That word is doing no work at all. A man 1 paycheck from the edge says fine. A woman whose investments pay her bills says fine. Same word, completely different lives. To see why, we have to leave money for a minute. In 1943, a psychologist named Abraham Maslow published a paper called A Theory of Human Motivation, and in it he argued something simple: human needs stack, food and safety at the bottom, belonging and respect in the middle, purpose at the top. And one rule holds the whole thing together: you don't climb until the level under you mostly holds. A man who hasn't eaten in 3 days is not worried about his legacy, he's worried about lunch. Here's the thing about that rule: it doesn't just describe hunger, it describes money, almost line for line. A writer in the financial independence world who goes by the Mad Fientist took Maslow's stack and mapped it straight onto our financial lives: survival, sustainability, accumulation, independence, utilization. 5 levels, same rule. You climb one at a time, and the next level doesn't get your attention until the one you're on stops shaking. But forget the pyramid. A pyramid is a diagram, and nobody lives in a diagram. Picture a 5-story walk-up instead. An old building, no elevator, 1 staircase between each floor. Everyone you know lives somewhere in this building. You start on whatever floor life hands you. You climb 1 flight at a time, and each staircase only opens when the floor you're standing on can hold your weight. And when a floor gives out under you, you don't drift down gently. You land a story or 2 below, hard, and you start climbing again. One more thing about this building, and it's the thing that explains Curtis's phone call. From any floor, you can only see your own. The walls are thick. Every floor says the same words: "I'm fine, we're okay, we get by," and means something completely different by them. There's a name for what that does to us. Call it floor blindness. Remember that phrase, because by the end of this, it's going to explain almost every money argument you've ever had. Let's take the stairs, bottom to top. The ground floor is survival. The threshold is brutal and simple. What it costs to exist outruns what you bring in. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey shows the lowest earning fifth of households, spending about 210% of its gross pre-tax income. Sit with that ratio. Call it $35,000 a year, going out against roughly $16,700 coming in gross before taxes even take their cut. Double the paycheck out the door every year. And a gap like that does not close by budgeting harder. It closes with borrowing, with family, with help. On the ground floor, debt isn't a mistake. Debt is the floor. Life down here has a particular feeling. The horizon shrinks to Friday. And that shrinking isn't weakness, it's wiring. Under real scarcity, the human brain narrows to the nearest fire. It kept our ancestors alive. It just makes a 5-year plan feel like science fiction. Which is why the ground floor's famous bad decisions deserve a second look. A payday loan at a punishing rate looks insane from upstairs. From down here, it's the bridge between an empty pantry and a paycheck that's 4 days away. A lottery ticket looks like math illiteracy from upstairs. From down here, it's $2 for the only version of the future that doesn't hurt to think about. Hope and groceries. On this floor, those are the two things you can't do without. Climb the first staircase and you reach floor 2, sustainability. The threshold, every bill, rent, food, the minimum payments, all of it, gets covered by your own income. No new borrowing to close the month. And this floor is where a huge share of working America lives, sometimes for decades. The bills get paid. On time even. It genuinely counts for something. But here's what floor 2 hands you along with the paid bills: zero margin. The Federal Reserve survey asks one deceptively small question. Could you cover a $400 emergency with cash or its equivalent? About 63% of adults say yes. Turn that around. Roughly 37%, nearly 4 adults in every 10, would reach for a card, a loan, or a favor. For $400. That's Curtis. That's the radio going up when the light came on. On floor 2, a check engine light is not a car event. It's a financial event. And floor 2 quietly rewires how you think about risk. When one alternator stands between you and the floor below, anything that locks money away feels dangerous. So money that does get set aside sits in checking, close enough to touch. Investing feels like a thing other people do. That's not ignorance. That's a person standing on a floor that shakes, refusing to let go of the railing. I have been the guy on floor 2. I have said the word fine about my money, while quietly running the math on whether the card would clear. Nobody made me say it. Pride handled that part all on its own. And I'll tell you the worst half, years later, from a steadier floor. I looked back at some of my old choices and winced at them like they'd been made by someone careless. They weren't. They were made by someone standing somewhere I'd simply stopped being able to see. Floor blindness works on your own past. That's how thick the walls are. Third staircase. Floor 3, accumulation. The threshold isn't whether you saved something this year. It's whether money piles up on purpose, every month, automatically, with no bonus or tax refund doing the heavy lifting. That's the whole test. Windfalls are luck. This floor is a habit. The Federal Reserve finds about 55% of adults holding rainy day savings that would cover 3 months of expenses, a hair over half. Which means nearly half the country is still climbing toward the cushion that defines this floor. And here's what's strange about arriving. From the street, nothing changes. Same apartment, same car. Curtis's neighbors would never know. The change is internal. The $400 surprise stops being an emergency and becomes an errand. You feel that one in your chest before you ever see it in a spreadsheet. The alternator dies, and your pulse just doesn't move. Money starts having a job beyond defense. For the first time, it can be planted instead of clutched. Fourth staircase, and this one's long. Floor 4, independence. The threshold, what you own, pays for how you live. Investments, passive income, covering 100% of your expenses, whether or not you ever work again. Most people's unspoken plan for this floor is Social Security, so price that plan. For a medium career earner, Social Security replaces about 41% of pre-retirement gross earnings. That's the Social Security Administration's own actuaries. Less than half a paycheck. It's a real floor under you. It is not this floor. Here's your version of the math. Take what you spent last month, then ask honestly what percentage your money, not your job, your money, could have covered. 0%, 10, 41? That number is how far up the fourth staircase you're standing. And the reward at the top of it isn't the resignation letter fantasy. Most people who reach this floor keep working. The reward is quieter. It's sitting in a bad meeting, hearing a layoff rumor roll down the hallway, and noticing your heart rate never moved. Work becomes a choice you're making instead of a sentence you're serving. Same desk, different floor. Which brings us to the top of the stairs. Floor 5, utilization. The threshold sounds like a fantasy. You'll realistically never run out. So the last question changes shape entirely. It's not, how do I get more? It's, what is this actually for? Spending and giving, aimed at whatever you decided your life means. Aim, not amount. And here's what the top floor doesn't do. It doesn't answer that question for you. Look at the giving data. Households in the top fifth of incomes give away about 1.9% of their gross income in cash contributions. The bottom fifth, the ground floor, the payday loan floor, gives about 4.7%. That's the Consumer Expenditure Survey again. The people with the least are giving away more than twice the share of what they have. Purpose does not come with the keys. Plenty of people reach the top of this building and just keep climbing anyway. More, next, again, out of pure habit, because climbing is the only thing the staircase has ever taught them. The floor can't hand you a name. You bring one, or you arrive without it. So that's the building. And now the fair objection: this whole tour told you where people stand, and not one sentence of how to climb. No budget, no steps. What is this thing actually for? It's for the walls. This building is the cure for floor blindness. Watch it work. The Federal Reserve's G19 release puts the average rate on credit card accounts actually being charged interest at about 22%. From floor 3 or 4, carrying a balance at that rate looks certifiable, and the person upstairs says so coldly, like it's a fact of arithmetic. But walk it downstairs. On the ground floor, where the choice is 22% or an empty refrigerator, that card might genuinely be the cheapest option still standing. Same number, same card. The floor changed, and the right answer changed with it. Nobody in this building is the villain, by the way. No scheming landlord, no rigged staircase. It's just architecture meeting wiring. Brains built for the nearest fire. Walls too thick to see through. And that's the empowering part. A trap you can see is a trap you can step around. Once you know the floors exist, you can't unknow them. So before you judge a money choice, your partner's spending, your parents' untouched savings account, the mess your own younger self made, ask one question first. What floor were they standing on? The advice that finally worked for you would have been useless to you 3 floors down. That's not a character flaw. That's architecture. Walk the building one last time, fast, and find yourself in it. Ground floor, existing costs more than you make, and debt holds the floor up. Floor 2, your income carries every bill, and one surprise still drops you. Floor 3, money piles up every month on purpose, and surprises become errands. Floor 4, what you own pays for how you live. Top floor, you'll never run out, so the only question left is aim. 3 honest answers place you. Does surviving outrun your gross paycheck? Would $400 go on plastic? Does saving happen monthly without a windfall? Your answers are your floor. And notice what the top of this building is. It isn't most. The top floor was never the biggest pile. Its money finally pointed at something. The climb was always about aim. Curtis is still on floor 2 tonight. The light's still on in the dashboard. But something shifted on that phone call, in the half second after he said "I'm fine," because for the first time, he heard the word for what it was, a floor number. And a floor is not a verdict, it's a location. Monday, he set up a transfer. Small, automatic, monthly, the first bolt in the 3rd staircase. The repair still went on the card. The climb started anyway. So here's the fork, and it's the same one Curtis stood at. You can keep grading yourself with an upper floor's math, calling yourself behind, calling other floors foolish, saying fine through your teeth. Or you can find your floor, name it without shame, and put your weight on the one staircase in front of it. If you're willing to name it where it counts, put your floor in the comments, ground, 2nd, 3rd, and the staircase you're working on, because half of what this building teaches is that nobody's standing on their floor alone, and if no one's ever walked you through it before, that's what subscribing is for. The next map finds you while you're still mid-climb. 1 building, 5 floors, no elevator, climb anyway. Let's lock in what actually matters here. 1. Fine is a floor number, not a feeling. 73% of adults tell the Federal Reserve they're doing at least okay. Same 2 words, 5 completely different buildings. Before you use that word again, know which floor you're saying it from. 2. The ground floor is survival, and the test is simple. What it costs to exist outruns what you bring in. The lowest earning fifth of households spends about 210% of its gross income. Down there, debt isn't a mistake. Debt is the floor holding everything up. 3. Floor 2 is sustainability. Every bill gets covered by your own income, and there is zero margin behind it. Roughly 37% of adults would reach for a card, a loan, or a favor to handle a $400 surprise. On that floor, a check engine light is a financial event. 4. Floor 3 is accumulation, where money piles up every month on purpose, with no bonus doing the work. About 55% of adults have 3 months of expenses set aside. Floor 4 is independence, where what you own pays for how you live. And price the default plan honestly. Social Security replaces only about 41% of a medium earner's pre-retirement pay. 5. The top floor is utilization, and it's about aim, not amount. The floor never hands you a purpose, so you bring one. And the reason the whole building matters is this. The average card rate on balances charged interest is about 22%. From an upper floor, carrying that looks insane. From the ground floor, it might be the cheapest option left. So before you judge a money choice, your partners, your parents, or your own younger selves, ask what floor they were standing on. Then find yours, name it without shame, and put your weight on the one staircase in front of it.